What is going on, everyone? Can you see me? Can you hear me? As per usual, we're going to get the draft started in a little bit. Let everyone kind of sprinkle in here. Once everyone's kind of loaded in, we'll begin. I loaded in the latest rankings. I mean, I update the rankings I don't know, 3-4 times a day. I think I updated 7 times a day. I'm not even kidding. Update them all the time. I have those loaded in right now, so you will be able to see the most up-to-date rankings. Any promos for the site, just the Underdog one. That would be everything you see on the screen. Use promo code FFA, and the whole Underdog deal will take effect. You'll get the Underdog rankings, articles, and the strategy app. Everything for Underdog, all free. It'll only be Underdog, though. So you can't use promo code FFA to sign up for Underdog, make your deposit, and expect to get dynasty rankings or something like that. It's just for Underdog there. Everything else is normal. We do the promo. It's the last, honestly, depends on taxes what I need, but either the first 2 weeks of the year or the last 2 weeks of the calendar year. That's when everything, I don't know, it's 20% off, something like that. But yeah, that's when everything goes on sale. So you got to be early in the season to get that. Thoughts on the elite running backs not getting paid? Yeah. Actually, we got a lot of people kind of came in pretty quickly. So we'll start up we're going to do Best Ball Mania again. I think it's just the best one to do. I think next week there won't be a stream because I'm traveling. Following week, I think we'll do weekly winners, but I'll start that up in a second. Yeah, it's interesting. You can see it from both sides. Honestly, the running backs should be frustrated. And I think what the league, at least what they should do if they're smart, is to lump running backs in with other positions. So say, okay, there's a skill player franchise tag, not just running back, because if you look at how much the running back franchise tag has changed, it's gone down. Every other position is going way up. And so obviously the team's going to look at it and they're going to be well, of course we're going to franchise running backs because we can sign them, have them for 4 or 5 years on a rookie contract, which might not be that much unless you drafted Bijan, then it's expensive. But for pretty much everyone that's not a first round pick and running back, you just, pay them not much then. If they're really good, you franchise them once, maybe you do it twice, and then you just cut them or you just don't give them a contract because running backs' careers are short. It makes sense from their perspective. And then it makes sense from the running back perspective. You're okay, but when I'm in my prime, I'm contributing way more than you're paying me. And so you can see why both sides are frustrated. I think the league just needs to change the base and make it higher. It can't be, $10 million to franchise tag a running back. It just has to be higher because these teams are going to keep doing this and you're just taking a position, taking it. But you do have to understand from the team's perspective, it's they know that whoever they throw in there and pay almost nothing can do sometimes 95% of what that first running back could have done. But if you look at it from Jacobs' case, of course, anyone that uses not Jacobs in that backfield is going to be way worse. Zamir White will be way worse than Jacobs is, and you won't hurt him as much. So you see it from all the ends. I really think they just need to figure themselves out. They got to change it. Why are running backs being able to be franchise tagged at less than they were years ago while every other position is going way up? The league is doing this to the running backs. They got to flip that around. They got to do something else. All right. You've been waiting for this all day. My goodness, Michael. Well, here we are. Doing a fast puppy almost closed. I think I've only done 1 or 2. I'm using the fast puppy. I should probably start tweeting these out again. So what I do, I don't actually suggest doing this because correlation matters, but I test out the rankings every day. I just throw the rankings into a draft. I hit this little button here that says turn on auto draft, and it auto drafts a team. And then I go in and I look, okay, how'd the team do, right? That team's probably not going to win anything because it's not correlating. Sometimes it just happens naturally, because there's plenty of wide receivers, running backs on teams. You happen to draft Kirk Cousins. You may have just gotten Hawkinson, Jefferson, Osborne, Addison, Madison, could just happen naturally. But it's not going to stack as much, so it's not something you do to win. And I wouldn't just enter a bunch and just auto draft. But what it does is it shows me what the teams look like. And so if it's consistently spitting out teams where it's not drafting running back early or it's drafting only running backs early, I need to adjust, right? I have to change the rankings and be okay, how can I adjust these to change up value a little bit to get teams that I would really like? And I think we are at this point at a point where you can throw it in there And typically you're going to get a team of players that I really like. It's not just, spitting out players way ahead of ADP, drafting them, being like, oh, I don't actually really like that. Like the rankings are really, really good at this point. But yeah, that's how I've been doing the fast puppy. And also, yeah, it's almost closed. Listen, we're in late July. There are always just a billion puppies. And whether it's a puppy, a Pomeranian, I hope the Pomeranian comes back for the rake free. But whichever ones of those you're entering, the puppy is the most famous, being the $5. Everyone kind of likes that price point. There will be more. So don't panic if it fills and you're like, oh no, now I have to enter Best Ball Mania. I have to enter weekly winners. If like those aren't contests you want to be in, they will pop up with more $3, $4, $5, $7 tournaments. They're just going to, but they take a little bit of a break. It's like they close, teensy break, and they come back up again. But yeah, there's obviously gonna be more. Like August is the biggest month for drafting everywhere. Have we discussed the Burks in relation to the Hopkins yet? You see the rankings have been updated and have been updated since the trade has been official. I can't actually remember when that happened. If that was before this latest, I think it was after last week's live stream, but I don't know off the top of my head. I discussed it in a video one time, but basically it is obviously bad for Burks and for Chig, right? I mean, that should just be straightforward. You're adding in someone who has consistently had like a 25-30% target share, is obviously a better wide receiver than both of them, is going to command a target share. And even if they're a better offense for more touchdowns, more yards, even if they throw at a higher rate, like that is not going to make up for the fact that they're taking production away and giving it to Hopkins. Even I didn't actually have to change them too much. The projections, hold on, I'll finish that thought after I make this pick here. Obviously, we would take Kelsey. He won't get there. Yeah, it'll be Kelsey, Diggs, Ray J. Brown. I'll just take the top one in the rankings that is there. And then the odds are at that next pick, we will draft a... I was looking for Chubb. Chubb went 8. I was like, did I mess up in the rankings somewhere and like accidentally tank Nick Chubb? Chubb taken 8th overall. My goodness. I mean, obviously, I talked about him in the league winners video, so obviously I like him. I think in redraft, that's a perfectly fine pick. Maybe wouldn't do that in like Best Ball Mania. Like, you know how many people got a way better ADP than 8th overall? A lot. We're gonna get a really good start here. I feel like AJ Brown plus literally any of these receivers is an awesome start. Do I go? This was the same one last time, and I said, do I go with Lamb? I took Lamb, and I kind of sort of regretted it a little bit, but that was really just gain exposure. That was a question I have to go over. I'll try to remember that. Anyways, I'll talk about what I was just alluding to in a second, and I'll bring up this here. Back to Burks and Titans. So I didn't actually have to downgrade the projection for Burks and for Chig very much because I was a little bit not projecting this to happen, but I was projecting a possibility for it. So I was giving extra production to players who are not going to be very good this season, just in the off chance this happened. I didn't want to have Burks and Chig as like these incredible picks. Everyone's drafting them, and then this happens, right? So I was accounting for that a little bit, took some of that and put it there, but they both dropped a little bit. Basically, I now have them both a little bit behind ADP. I would expect ADP to kind of fall back a little bit and match where I have them. And I think at the end of the day, they'll both end up being solid picks. That's what I would imagine. But right now, if you're drafting at ADP, you would want to wait a little bit for Burks and Chig. For Hopkins, he's down a little bit because there was theoretically a chance he could go to somewhere like Buffalo, a chance he could go to somewhere like Kansas City. We kind of figured that it was New England, Tennessee, or Kansas City at the end. But like if he went to Kansas City, that'd have been awesome. So he's down a little bit, but it was only a few spots. When I kind of went through and did it, I was like, well, he's actually going to command a pretty significant target share. Tannehill is like a fine quarterback. Like maybe we don't want him in fantasy, but in terms of like actual NFL quarterback, he's like not that bad. He's actually like pretty efficient at times. So I think you can still draft everyone, basically. That's what I'm saying. It helps Tannehill, but again, he's not someone that like we're going out and drafting a ton of. And it'd only be like super late for Tannehill. But yeah, that's the general take there. The other thing I was alluding to was someone asked me, they actually emailed in, which I don't suggest. I would suggest just joining the free Discord and like tagging me. If you've just joined it recently, it's at nzylak. Tag me and I'll try to answer questions. Basically, the question was, they've entered like 5 to 6 drafts so far, and they keep getting like picks 9 through 12. and they keep falling on similar players, right? If you are generally drafting here, it's going to be very similar players you're choosing between, and they keep starting off with like Diggs, Adams, or like Garrett Wilson, Adams, maybe like AJ Brown, Mona St. Brown, and they're like, should they be changing it up, basically? Like, should they, even if someone's higher in the rankings, if they like them more, should they sometimes maybe pick a different player? Like I did in last week's stream. Last week's stream, I was like, I'm not drafting much Lamb, but I have him projecting this general range. Maybe I should take, I think it was Diggs. I don't remember who I took in the first round. I think it was Diggs or AJ Brown. And then I took Lamb instead of Adams. And this one I went with Adams over Lamb because that's what I have in the rankings. My general thought is if you're doing like, whoa, who just went? Oh my God. Okay. I just wanted to pay attention to this here. Mark Andrews, Lamar Jackson stack. Don't suggest this as I personally have multiple teams where I drafted Lamar Jackson in the 4th round. And like I drafted like Andrews and Lamar like here. So for this person to draft them there and think they're going to beat my team, they better beat me in like a lot of other areas. That's all I'm saying. We'll go back to it in a second. But basically, it was a question of diversification. Like, how much do you diversify? And I'll get into that in a second. This is what I have been curious of. Where is Josh Jacobs going? We're at pick 35 right now. Wow. He's fallen this far. I almost want to test this guy. Is he going to take him? Because I do actually think that's like not a bad pick, and I think he's going to play this season. What do I do? The move. I want to test him. The play there is probably to draft Jacobs. I think that's too far. I think he's a phenomenal pick here. This person should draft him. Okay, there he goes. But I wanted to see how many people are like going to push him back. That would have been a much better pick for my team, obviously. But I was curious what that person would do, and we're not too concerned. So we start off with the 3. We know that a strategy is going for a bunch of wide receivers early and then getting that mid. I think I want to go for it. Extreme robust wide receiver would be 5 wide receivers to start off, a running back in round 6, 1 tight end and 2 quarterbacks over the next 3 rounds. And then we draft just 2 more wide receivers late, 1 more tight end, and we just load on the running backs. Not saying that's how we're going to finish this, but we'll see. But obviously, again, if I wasn't doing this just to see what this person would do, the correct move is obviously to draft Jacobs over Ridley, to grab that running back, to have a stack with Adams, and then I could have gotten any of these wide receivers at the next pick anyways. But I think it can still work out because I think this is a good strategy that we're going to test out here. But I want to see what he did. To finish that thought, though, if you're doing like 5 to 6 drafts on Underdog, let's say, or you're in like 2 to 3 redraft leagues, I don't think you necessarily need to diversify a ton. If you're at 5 or 6, sometimes you will get unlucky and they'll all be late picks and you'll have a general start over here. But I don't know that that's enough to diversify. Once you start getting into like 20 drafts, let's say you do 20 drafts into the puppy, right? It's $100. Like that's your budget for the year. And naturally, you're going to have diversification, right? Because at under 20 drafts, you're going to have some early, some mid, some late. You're not going to get super unlucky and have them all late. But I would say if you do keep landing on someone early in that many, I would make it a point to diversify. If you are in 5 redraft leagues, I would make it a point to, if you keep getting the same pick, to not be drafting the exact same players in the early rounds. In the later rounds, if there's a flyer you like in rounds like 12 on, go for it, because even losing at that pick, like if they tear their ACL or something, it's really not going to hurt you that much because those later round picks don't matter as much for team success. Like team success is very, very driven on what happened in the early rounds. If you bust on your first 2 picks, it doesn't really matter if you hit late. Like it's going to hurt you overall. So I would diversify. I wouldn't take Adams in 50% of your leagues because he keeps being a value in the second round. The difference between Adams, Amon-Ra St. Brown, CeeDee Lamb isn't significant enough to have 5% Lamb and 50% Adams. I think Adams is better, but I don't think he's 10 times more likely to succeed. And so you got to think about it kind of in that sense. It's almost like in DFS when like someone's projected to be 1% owned and there's a better play that's 30% owned, but you're like, is he really 30 times more likely to succeed? Maybe he has a 1 point higher projection, but you should maybe just go with the 1% player, right? That's not the same thing in a draft, but it is in your like ownership of your teams. You don't want to take the exact same player in all these early rounds, because if they just a smart thing to do. But if you're in like 2 drafts and you happen to get AJ Brown and like Adams in both of them, I don't think that's the end of the world. You're not in enough leagues for where you need to vary it up that much. So we got our 4. We're not going to do the strategy. So I would do that if like there was a value here at wide receiver. I would absolutely not reach for these. Well, it's not even a huge reach for these players, but I would want to do it at value. Like it is something that you don't want to be like going out of your way for there. So we're not going to draft a tight end. I don't think we're going to draft a wide receiver. I feel like the move is to take our first running back here. So we might just queue up Cam Akers. Trevor Lawrence is an option, but I don't love it. Would have liked to get Walker there. Walker's been falling. I have not drafted any Walker until this last week. This last week, I've been in some drafts where he actually is finally the top player in the rankings, and I've been taking it a few times. I've been praying that this would happen because I really want to get some because he's such a great player. But he just hasn't been a value all summer. I think his ADP is finally falling a little bit. What if we just like flip-flopped it though? That's what I was kind of thinking in the back of my head. Like if we just took JSN here, we theoretically still have that same build. It was off by like, a few picks there, but we still have the same structure and we could still go for it over the next few rounds. It's basically, do I want Miles Sanders instead? Now let's go for it. We talked about the build. Let's try and do it. I would have been fine with Miles Sanders there. I would have been fine with Trevor Lawrence's stack with Ridley. My hesitation with Trevor Lawrence is I'm in a lot of leagues where I've gotten Trevor Lawrence in the 80s and a ton where he falls into the 70s. And so for me to take him ahead of ADP when I have so much Trevor Lawrence and almost all of it is like 5 to 6 spots behind his ADP, it just doesn't feel right. Like, is there a chance that at the next pick he's there? I mean, probably not at 83, but like I have been in leagues where that's occurred, and you're obviously way better off if that were to happen to you. So we're going with the build structure. We've got our wide receivers. If it's a value in the next 3 rounds, 1 tight end, 2 quarterbacks, doesn't matter which way. Test him. Yeah, we wanted to test the man, but he passed. He passed the test. Everything you've posted in roster review, Nick has responded to without me adding him. Not lying. Discord is the best way to reach him. No, it is. Like, you can email on the website, and it may be in a week or 2 I'll get back to you. But if you just go into the free Discord and you at me, I will do my absolute best to answer all of your questions. You do not need to pay anything. Go into the Discord, completely free. It's not in the description of this video, but it's in the description of every other video. Just join it. Drafting Lamar and Andrews at 2-3 turn will be completely different lineup to the players. Yes, completely true. So, and I actually have seen this play out in the playoff contests. Last year, there were people, I believe the draft structure was Purdy. People were taking Purdy in like the top 3. And when he would go at like pick 10. And so it's like, oh, it's a huge reach. But what they were doing is creating a different beginning build that would push a different structure for everyone else. And it would actually end up with still okay teams. And it would be a completely different structure than everyone else. So they'd end up with a different team. And that can begin these tournaments. So I completely agree. My issue is just that, like, yeah, maybe I don't have him with Justin Jefferson, but is a better start. And if I've done it, it means that thousands of other teams have done it. And so unless Jefferson has this dominant season, overall, you're losing out on average. Could it be something where you advance and almost no one has that at, like week 17, and that's what you need? Sure. But I can tell you a lot of people have gotten Lamar at 48, and a lot of people have done like Mark Andrews at 24 and gotten lucky with Lamar at 48. That was more earlier this offseason. People have done it and they just have a better build. So I don't know that I'd do it, but I understand like theoretically why you'd want to do it. What do you think of taking Hill, Waddle in redraft? Would you recommend not doing both? So when people ask about like double dipping at the same, like there's a difference between double dipping on Chris Godwin and Mike Evans and doing it with Tyreek Hill and Waddle, right? We know the offense is significantly better. We know that they make up just an insane share of that offense. So that's like a 2 specific one. I would say I would never reach for it. So if you're drafting both of them ahead of ADP, like basically, if you drafted Tyreek Hill at ADP and then you reached a little bit on Waddle, I don't love that. If he became a value and the best player in the rankings, I think it's fine. I would just, honestly, I'd probably draft Tua because you're making a huge bet on that offense. You're betting that Tua stays healthy. And so why would you not? I'd go out of my way to draft Tua. I would draft Tua ahead of ADP because it's like you kind of just need him to have a good season. If he doesn't have a good season, I mean, what are you doing, right? Like if he gets hurt and ends up being a bad pick, well, now, your first 2 picks are also bad. So I would just correlate everything there. So we're at 83. The second to top player in the rankings is Dallas Goedert, and we did need to draft a tight end under this general build structure. Unfortunately, it's not looking like if I had a Miami receiver, I would take Tua here. I don't, and I'm not going to force that as part of this build. I like Rachaad White. I like James Conner, maybe not as much as Rachaad White. I do think Dallas Goedert, I think we should kind of like go towards this like general build. I didn't need to click that. He would have been there. I think we should start towards it. Maybe we just push off. I thought I was like back to back there. I think maybe we just push off the quarterback part. So we're supposed to go with 2 quarterbacks here. I think we take our 2 quarterbacks in the next one, and maybe we go with James Conner at this pick. There's no other running backs I would take. You could take Gabe. If I had Allen, I would take Gabe there. You could double dip and take Waller. I don't know that you need to do that. I think Conner just makes sense. That would have been a pick basically. The 11th round, we were supposed to take our next running back. I moved that up. I moved quarterback back a little bit. I think that's still definitely fine to do. The same general structure will be achieved with this build. We got wide receiver early. We grabbed a good tight end. We're going to get our 2 kind of mid to late round quarterbacks, and then we'll kind of overload running back. We'll be able to maybe adjust it a little bit. So the build wants us to do 7 total wide receivers. Listen, like we have Akers and Conner now. Maybe we don't need as many running backs. Maybe we can go to 8 wide receivers. But we'll just kind of see what happens, really. We'll adjust from there. 140 concurrence, which I believe is our top that we've had this season. Also, my left screen is frozen. So that's just like a lovely thing that has occurred. Wondering if that's fine. But if someone could let me know if we're still good at the bottom. Basically, my left screen froze, and I want to make sure that we are still connected to everything. No one said that the screen was like gone, so we'll see. And I did just get a note, but someone tell me if you can still see me, so I'm not just like talking to a void for the next 40 minutes. But hopefully you do, and I'll look for a comment in the meantime. It's all good, wonderful. So my computer is very, very good. I have a phenomenal computer. The problem with it is sometimes it just freezes, and it won't be like my screen. So if I'm working on this screen here, the left screen will just completely freeze, and I have to do the like lock unlock real quickly. I don't know, but I guess we're good. So, nice. Okay. Questions. I thought there was one that I saw, but then I got concerned about that. Oh, yeah, the Hill model thing. So, again, just to close on that, if you do that, take Tua. You just got to do it. In typical 2 wide receiver leagues, do you find yourself targeting wide receiver heavy like the majority of people, or are you estimating last year was like 2015? I mean, it's very difficult for us to know if that's the case. So what he's referencing there is in 2015, we had just a crazy year. It was in 2015, all running backs just completely tanked. And so we look into the 2016 season, everyone kind of overreacted. Wide receivers went super early. Then the wide receivers tanked. The running backs did really well, and you had to draft running back early to end up producing a high-end season. I don't know that we can say that because that's just random, right? It just happened to happen where like running back tanked and then wide receiver tanked in back-to-back years and kind of hurt people who like did that. So I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen, but I'll say that like I love some of these early running backs. Like if you're able to start with McCaffrey, Eckler, Bijan, Chubb, Taylor, I mean, I think at this point, we're kind of starting to get a pretty clear top 5 there, especially with the chances that Saquon holds out. If we didn't have a holdout from Jacobs, Saquon, I think they would kind of be more in the mix there. If we were looking at like Tony Pollard, he's not going to hold out, but like Tony Pollard's kind of in the mix there. But like they're really good and they have a lot of upside this season. So in that sense, I find myself being like, if they get pushed back in your league, in a normal redraft league, go for them. Absolutely. What I would say though is I don't love always this next range. Stevenson, if I just think there's a chance that they sign someone. I don't always love like Aaron Jones and Najee. I think you might as well just wait for some of these other ones. Hold on, we gotta make our pick here. I thought, just off the top of my head, I thought we should go for Dak and Geno. I guess theoretically, Geno's more important to our team for the stack. So maybe we should lock up Geno. But then part of me is thinking, why'd I do that? Because ADP-wise, Dak's much more likely to be drafted. And I definitely should have looked at his team and seen if he... Okay, stupid. Okay. Oh, yeah. He's going to take Dak. He's got Brandon Cooks. Gosh. Oh, he didn't. Wow. I mean, I would have if I was him. Let's think. Wide receivers, stacking partners, all those are gone. So it's basically, do we wait for Wilson? But there's no one at other positions that I'm really... Okay. And the bye week's fine, right? Week 5, week 7. Okay. We're still doing it. So we've completed the build so far beautifully. We would like to find a stack with Dak. Unfortunately, the only one left is Gallup, and I don't even love Gallup this season. If we wanted to in the last round, I still haven't done it yet, but I think it would be a sharp play to get Jalen Tolbert, who I think is going to be the number 4 receiver this season and has big play potential. Is someone who I don't expect to help you advance, but someone that, like, you know, in week 17, if you can make it that far, like a Tolbert Dak stat could be the only person that has it. And if he goes off, and again, he's had really good reports this offseason, it's a play you can make in the last round. So maybe I'm going to do it one day. Still haven't done it yet. Yeah, so you can get Gallup, Tolbert, Malik Ferguson. Here's my take on that, though. If Malik ends up being the backup, sure, that's great. I still think there's a chance they sign someone, a chance that Malik isn't the direct backup, that, you know, Malik's really just mixing in for some early down carries, but that they mix in Vaughn as well. So I don't love that. I don't really love taking him in the last round. I think there's so many, like, you can get so many running backs in the last round that I think Malik, I don't know, it's a little bit thin for me. And then Ferguson, like, if you look at the tight ends, I don't know if it's really going to pop up here because I don't really know where I have him in the rankings, to be honest. I don't know how to say his name. I don't know how to say his name, but this guy's supposed to be getting some snaps, and then Hendershot could get some snaps, and Ferguson's probably going to open the season's league guy, but then that, like, Schoonmaker dude is supposed to, like, it's supposed to kind of, like, you know, overtake a little bit, and it's kind of a rotation. I don't know. Like, again, there's a lot of decent tight ends in the last round. Like, in the last round, you can have your pick between, like, Hayden Hurst, Likely, Fant, Henry, Musgrove, McBride. I don't know, Ferguson, really? Like, I don't think that's really the play as much. So I would very much prefer if we just got like Gallup at good value, which our next pick is 31 and 34. I mean, I just think we should just hope for Gallup at one of those two picks. You've been getting great running backs late in Best Ball Mania drafts. Honestly, yeah, drafts are weird. So sometimes I'm in a league where no one wants running back, right? Like, this one seemed pretty normal. But I've been in leagues where it's like, you know, no one wants Pollard, no one wants Henry, no one wants Gibbs. They all keep falling super late. I end up with like 4 or 5 running backs in the first couple rounds. And I'm just like, what am I doing here? Then I end up with some with everyone's in love. Everyone's in love with the running back position. I end up with 1 billion wide receivers. And so it really is something where it's like, that's why I love these drafts so much, is because you can do so many of them and you get so many unique builds. If running back ends up hitting, I've got 1 million teams where I took running back early. If wide receiver ends up hitting, I've got 1 million teams where I took that early. I have teams where I've took tight ends early, quarterbacks early. Like I have all these different builds. So no matter what happens, I have something that in that draft specifically was optimal and then ended up being so that like the $3 million top end prize pool is appealing. Don't do that, right? It's only 4 drafts, not diversity. Like I would wait for a Pomeranian to come out and try and like max enter that. It's rake free. But at the very least, enter the puppy. Enter these like smaller ones and do a bunch of different drafts. If you don't have time to sit down and do a bunch of drafts, slow drafts, right? You want to see how many slow drafts I'm in right now? All right, let's go to, is it live? I don't even know what tab it's in because it's different on the app. I don't think that was the answer. Drafts, active. Look at this. I'm on the clock in 3. Look at this. This is how many drafts I am currently in for slow drafts. That's crazy, right? I wake up, I do some picks, right? I'm at lunch, I do some picks. It's just a random time when the video is rendering, I do some picks. I'm going for a walk, I do some picks. Like, you can just do it without the day because you have 8 hours to make them, so you don't have to sit down. This is the only time I ever sit down and do drafts is to do them with you guys. Anyways, I don't even remember what the tangent was about right there, but we're done with it. We want Gallup. We again need to be careful. We're only going to draft 7 wide receivers here. So we only have 2 left because we've invested so heavily in it early on. But we want Gallup. I would honestly be fine with Mooney as well, but I don't want to lock ourselves out. So I don't know that I would take him. It would be Gallup here. At running back, it's not fantastic. I don't love it. I think to give us more time, I think, again, Gallup is just like a good pick. Let's take Gallup. Tight end, we can't do Higbee because it's a double week 10 bye, and I think we're probably only going to draft 2. But Dulcich is not a bad pick here. So I would consider Greg at this pick. I don't think the play is to do wide receiver. I just don't. We only have 1 more, and I think we can get a better value. So the question is, do we go with Tank? Because we need so many running backs, and because tight end can become a value at another point, and because running back is going to fall off very quickly, we'll go with Tank. I like the team so far. All right, there we go. Montgomery has been your go-to in the later rounds. Well, he's not really a late round pick. He goes in what, like the 8th, something like that. Montgomery 7th round in this one, 76. He's been climbing a little bit, unfortunately. We got plenty of him earlier this summer. But yeah, I mean, the love for Montgomery is real. Like, we love Montgomery here. You get a bunch of Dameon Pierce at a lower AP. Yeah, I mean, I basically, when I'm in this spot, general range here, it really is after that range of like, I'm hammering the wide receivers through like Ayuk, Addison, and then there kind of is a drop off for me. Like, I do like getting JSN and Lockett, and honestly, Pittman's been falling to a good range. And then I guess Dotson as well. But I don't honestly love a ton of them. Johnston as well. I'd like to get Johnston. But like, I don't really want Pickens that much. Haven't been doing much Marquise Brown. Tony only if I have Mahomes. Mike Evans I haven't been getting a ton of. Michael Thomas at 80 is a reach. You should get him at like pick 100 if you're getting him. So it is a range where I like, if I went wide receiver heavy, I like running back. And so yeah, I load up on a ton of Rashad White, Dameon Pierce, David Montgomery, Javonte Williams. If he's a little bit later, 73. My goodness. This dude's just taking a lot of people early, in my opinion. The stacks are fine, but reaching, it seems, to get some of these stacks. But yeah, Cam Akers, like, love getting all of those running backs because you're getting them way later in ADP because, obviously, they're much less likely to succeed. But if they do, many of them have a lot of upside. Is there a way to upload the rankings to Yahoo for casual league draft, or is it best to download Excel and delete the players? I mean, I don't know because I don't play on Yahoo. I know on ESPN you can set what's called a pre-draft ranking. I don't actually know. They change it sometimes. I don't know the exact process for it, but you can go in and you can just like click, into the rankings there. Like maybe Yahoo has a CSV upload. It would be great if they worked like DFS sites and you could, or like Underdog, where you can easily just go in Underdog in the rankings tab. You literally just click upload a CSV and you can upload my CSV up there and it's beautiful. I don't know for like Yahoo. I don't know what Yahoo really does. I'll say this. you can just use the custom rankings and draft based off that Excel sheet. So maybe that's what you were talking about. I would just draft it separately. I would just click there because that also like gives you some other stuff in there as well, and you can see more things. As long as you can like practice it and kind of like stay up with the picks, I would just keep it on the Excel sheet. But I don't know. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a pre-draft ranking. I'm pretty sure you can set it. I just don't know how to do it. I think you can also do Fantasy Pros. I think if you can hook up Fantasy Pros to Yahoo and ESPN and stuff like that, and you can upload my rankings. I have a video on how to do that. Upload them to Fantasy Pros, then use Fantasy Pros to draft your Yahoo League. I think you can do that, but don't quote me on that. And I don't know if it costs money. I'm really not sure about that. I feel like Fantasy Pros gave me like a free all-in thing. I don't really know. I haven't paid Fantasy Pros in years, but sometimes people tell me stuff's premium that I'm using. Okay. Higbee's a huge value at this point, but he's the week 10 bye, which stinks for us. Roshan's been falling a lot. I don't know, man. I don't hate him at this ADP. I listened to the 32 with the beat. You guys should be listening to that podcast. You should be following 32 beat writers on Twitter. They did a podcast with the Chicago beat writer. Reading his tone, it seemed like he was anticipating Roshan getting opportunities, like real opportunities this year. We're not doing tight end. We're not doing quarterback unless it's something nuts. No. I'm really thinking, should I do tight end here? Because there's a pretty big drop off to the rest. I kind of want to do that. I kind of want to just take Higbee, get that value. It's two really good values at tight end. Hope I can get Roshan at this pick because basically the beat reporter was saying Herbert's really, really good. I think Herbert's the best running back on the roster personally. But basically they're very much going to emphasize pass protection, and that's something that Roshan might win out in. So 157 for Hunter. I got Hunter and Fro at 218. Literally today, I made that pick. 150. It's 30 spots ahead of ADP. And that's not even to complete a stack. Maybe it's to complete a stack later on. I don't know. That's a wild pick. Anyways, take Roshan here. I think that he could get that opportunity. And so it's almost like you don't care that he can win the pass catching role for overall receptions because there's not going to be that many receptions for the Bears. You care about it because if he has that role, it means he's just on the field more. And if he's on the field more, he can produce a little bit. He can kind of overtake Herbert at some point. And then the upside is an injury. He can be like a feature back. And again, I'm not saying Foreman's not going to be the guy. I just think he's like, third most likely to be the guy. That's my general take on Herbert. Also, or on I guess Herbert and Roshan. But just because Roshan's been falling, I didn't get a ton of him when he was at like pick 140. I just got him pick 158. I've seen that happen a lot recently. We're very, very close to camps opening up. I think he's a player that once camps open up, people can easily fall in love with Roshan Johnson just because like the narrative is so easy. Bijan was a lead back in Texas. Roshan, has the build. He's, athletically awesome. He maybe just wasn't given enough opportunity. Had Bijan not been there, Roshan easily could have been the one, could have produced like Bijan. We do know that Bijan is much better than Roshan. But had he gotten that opportunity, maybe he would have gone way early in the draft, and maybe we would be talking about him, more along the lines of Charbonnet in this sort of range, something like that. Possible. Like, we just don't know. That's why I haven't been on him a ton, is because that's like pure speculation, right? But it makes sense, and I think that ADP could skyrocket with him if there's some positive reports. If he's running with the ones, if it looks like he's winning out the passing game role, you're just going to see it go way up. You're going to see it go right back to 40, up into the 30, because like there's not that much holding him back. Like if he wins this job, right, he's going to easily surpass everyone here. He's going to shoot up into like right with Khalil Herbert. He'll be going like right next to him. And that's like, potentially an easy 25 spots of value you just got over closing line. That just to me is a good pick. So I've been wanting him a little bit. He's getting to the spot where it's like, what else were you drafting, right? At running back here, Spears, Zeke. I like these two, but they're going in the 170s, right? Spears, Zeke, Mostert, Gus, Chuba. Like, seriously? Like, Roshan has more upside than a lot of them. Although I will say, like, we're targeting these two running backs. Hopefully they're our next pick. Trust me, Ferguson is your guy. No, I'm not. I'm not drafting Ferguson. I'll just tell you that right now. You think DK gets 10 plus targets this season? Yeah. Yeah. Did I say targets? I don't know if I said targets, but touchdowns. Yeah. He had a down year last year. It was more of a fluke. The like volume was there. He's awesome. More of a fluke with the touchdowns last year. Yeah, I could easily see DK getting like 10, 12 touchdowns this year. Lower cough drafts, people love to go running. Oh, that's interesting. You've noticed people draft 3 quarterbacks or 6 running backs. So that is interesting. That's another thing in DFS is you want to like really load into those low dollar tournaments because you're not playing with the sharks, right? On a site like DK, professionals are not able to play in contests that are lower than, I believe, $4. It's either $3 or $4. And so if you load in a bunch of those, you're not playing professionals, you're getting much more casual players, worse lineup, worse take, stuff like that. And so you can kind of think about that on a site like Underdog and be like, okay, well, if you're entering these like super low ones, the field is at least much more heavy in casual players. Oh, goodness. Spears and Zeke seriously go. It's not saying the professionals won't be there because they will be. There's no restriction. But there's much more people who are going to have bad lineup construction, reach on players when they shouldn't be. And so I don't think it's a huge deal. But it's like if you enter one of those like $100 ones, you're going to see a difference. But we just like can't go with one of these running backs. I can't justify that. That's too much of a reach there. Good value on Campbell. We already have our stacks, so I'm not too concerned about that. I feel like Campbell will be the play there. If you wanted to go with Jawan to kind of make up for the tight end here, fine. I think just going with Campbell, just a guy that's like going to have a consistent role in the offense, going to be decent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I feel like that was a good 7th wide receiver. We're done wide receiver. We're going to need more running backs. So that's definitely the weak part of this team. And I was definitely banking on getting Tank and Zeke. That would have been, or Spears and Zeke. I already have Tank. That would have been really nice to see. So we need upside with these picks. I probably would have gone Gus with that pick too. This dude already has 6 running backs. Gosh, it's gross. I mean, Chuba, I don't really want Chase Brown anymore with Mixon signing. I'll want Fournette later, maybe, because so the take with Fournette that I've had recently is, let me just make this pick real quick. Okay, I have to make the pick. The take recently has been, think about Zeke, Hunt, Fournette, right? They're waiting as long as they want. Now think about Saquon, Jacobs. I don't think that Pollard's going to hold out, but think about those two. If like Josh Jacobs holds out, he's trying to prove a point. He knows that for him, it's the wrong decision. But if he's trying to like better running backs, right? Better the position, kind of like make a statement basically. You don't think that the Raiders are maybe going to go after, because they do not trust Zamir White. I'm just promising you right now, it's not going to be Zamir White. I was on him last season. The things that they're saying, it just doesn't seem like it's going to be him or any of those other backups. What if they brought in Fournette? They brought in Ezekiel Elliott, and you're getting these guys this late in the draft at like 15, 16, 17. Like I got Fournette at like 213, I think it was today, 212, 213. These are incredible values. I have one team where I drafted in the last 4 rounds. I just went, it was Zeke, Hunt, Fournette. I think there was one other one. I can't remember who it was, but just banged all those out because it's like the chance that like if they sign one of these running backs and we have a holdout from Jacobs, they end up returning, 5th round value. And that's not something you can say about many of these other running backs. So maybe the play was just go with him. Maybe I should be raising him. It's just like Fournette's just honestly, he's been consistently in like the 200s. And like Zeke's been consistently in the 70s and 80s, like 170s, 180s. And I don't fully understand that. Like at that point, it is worth the risk that they just don't sign this season, because like if they do and it's to one of these teams with a holdout or there's an injury or something like that, it's getting harder to justify this team. Anyways, they'll have upside. It's getting really hard to justify this team over here. Drafted Lamar, Kirk Cousins, Bryce Young, and Stafford to go along with Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Mike Gesicki, and Isaiah Likely. So you only have Justin Jefferson, Sky Moore, Thielen, Mingo, and Osborne. 5 receivers, 1 pick left. That's not enough. You minimum need 7. Running backs, Aaron Jones, Pacheco, Javonte Williams. Like, you're either going to have 5 wide receivers or 4 running backs and one where you didn't even take a running back till round 4. Like, it's incredibly suboptimal. So we love that. We love to see that. Our build, we definitely need another running back for sure. Then we can kind of see where we go after that. Ty Chandler is probably our best bet. If not, okay, there he goes. I mean, we probably should draft Deuce Vaughn. I think Kareem Hunt is a perfectly fine pick. I think maybe we go with Kareem Hunt at this spot. I believe the build is 2772 for what's optimal here. But I think Deuce Vaughn just makes the most sense because of our Dak stack. Maybe we get a full season of Tony Pollard, but then kind of at the end of the season, Pollard gets injured. They don't really want to sign someone because maybe they're expecting him back at the end of the year. Maybe some of these free agents have already been signed. And so they kind of lean on Deuce Vaughn in like a large pass catching role. He catches a touchdown, in week 17. It's a low scoring week for running back. Like, there's a lot of stories you can tell to where Deuce Vaughn, a receiving threat, can pair well with Dak. I pretty much only draft Vaughn on Dak teams though. That's kind of been a rule I've made because I drafted too much of him early on. But because he's always available, it's another out. I forgot about that out. That's an out that I make with Dak. Our pick here is up. Kareem Hunt. Unless there's someone else. I love drafting Puka. I just don't think we need that play. I don't think we need another tight end. Again, we have this. If you wanted to draft Hayden Hurst here, I think that's also fine. Do we feel good enough about our running backs? Maybe we do. Akers, Connor, Tank, Roshan, Chuba, Deuce. Oh, it's not great. I think either is fine there. I will take Hayden Hurst. Here's my general take on when people draft 2 tight ends with the same bye week and feel like they need a third. In week 10, the odds are you're going to get really good production from a few tight ends, but 7 of the 12 teams in this league are going to get a tight end score combined that's like 5 to 7 points. So I'm basically losing 5 to 7 points by not drafting Hayden Hurst. And also, who knows what Hayden Hurst is going to do in week 7? He might only score 3. And so that pick might only get me 3 points in that week. It's going to help out in other weeks. There'll be weeks where Hayden Hurst scores touchdowns, has a better game than Tyler Higbee and than Dallas Goedert. But I don't think you need to make that play. If you believed strongly that like you need another running back, but you're like, oh, I can't because I drafted 2 at week 10 bye, take the running back. I really don't think it's a huge concern. It's only a few points you're giving up in that week. But I don't know. It was kind of 50-50 in my mind what was best there. Chuba's your late pick. Also, Algier is great. I do think Algier is a good like RB0 pick because if Bijan went down, we know that Algier would have a really strong role. And Chuba, I don't know, it just feels gross taking Chuba because like I like Miles Sanders, but yeah, he makes sense because there's still touches. Would you rather have Herbert or Trevor around later? Typically, I just draft more of Trevor. If you have any sort of stack that'll go along with Herbert, do it. Take Herbert. It's been easier for me to stack Trevor Lawrence because pretty much always Engram is just there every single time. You can take Tank like I did in this one. You can end up taking. Did I move him up over to Goddard? I don't know if that's accurate. You can end up, I'll check the rankings real quick. You can end up with just like a bunch of different Jaguars players, and I just like the Jaguars a lot. So I do like the value of Trevor. But I would say I end up with Trevor more because it's not around later. Like when Herbert typically goes right here, like the 5th round. Lawrence, yes, ADP-wise here, but when I get Lawrence, I typically get him in 7. I typically get him in this general range, and then I'm like, okay, now I'm just definitely targeting Evan Ingram. I'm targeting Tank Bigsby. I'm targeting Zay Flowers. I don't need all of them, but like I can get one of them on my team. I moved, so I guess I did do that. Did I change that? I'll pull up the half PPR rankings. I don't think I did. So the rankings are going off of like maybe 3 weeks ago. And it says over the last 3 weeks, I've moved Waller down 2 spots overall and Goddard up 1 spot. I think I've always had Goddard over Waller, and we're going to get the tight ends rankings video drops tomorrow, so you guys can watch that. I'm pretty sure I didn't move it. It's just more that like when I talk about it, I don't draft Dallas Goedert that much, because like I drafted Goedert in this one because he was available at pick 83. You know, he typically goes before that. It was a range where this specific build type was pushing us towards the tight end position. That's why I took him there. But I typically end up with more Waller just because I like him on his own. And I also like that the stack is still there. You can do Waller and then you can do Daniel Jones, whereas the stack's already gone with Goddard. Like you missed out on Jalen Hurts if you didn't get him there. See if we got any questions here. Oh, okay. Renfro's a week 17 stack with Richardson. Yeah, but we're not reaching 30 spots for that. What's your ideal build from the 101 12-team PPR to wide receiver? I'm assuming because you said that it's redraft. Watch the video where I talked about how to draft from like the top end pick here. In general, McCaffrey is like the only running back you consider there, but for the most part, I feel like it's Jefferson or McCaffrey. If you end up going with McCaffrey, I'm going with a Hero RB build. Jefferson, Pollard, T. Higgins sometimes, because in redraft, you don't typically get wide receivers going as early here. But Hero RB is a typical build type. Do you do sleeper rankings based on, I don't know what that means. Do you do sleeper rankings based off different platforms? I don't 100% know what that means. What I think it means is, do I have anything that identifies who's the best pick on different platforms? The answer is yes. There's a free page on the site. If you go to the site, thefantasyfootballadvice.com, you can see it on the screen. You click the ADP tab. I'll just show you. You go to the site. There are 2 tabs that you can go to for ADP, both free. One of them is player ADP over time. Another one is best values by site. Best values by site is going to be updated soon to reflect more types. So this pulls the ADPs. Right now it only has ESPN and Yahoo, and it's going to tell you which has the best site. Very, very soon it's going to have Underdog and NFL.com added in there. And basically it's going to sort by average. You can kind of see the average. You can see the ADPs on here. But you can also be like, okay, I only want the best values on ESPN, and it's going to show you that. And as I add more in, you're going to really start seeing who the best picks are on each site. So that's one. The other one is an error for some reason right now, which I'll just have to reset the app. I'll have to reset that. I don't feel like doing that live. That one basically just shows you ADP over time. So you could type in a player and see like their trend in ADP. You can also just check out who's been rising and falling the most over the last like X weeks. But it can do that once I reset it. All right, a few questions. First guy one had to have gone auto. I mean, I hope honestly that it was an auto pick for that. I don't actually know what he ended up drafting here, but yeah, this is just a dreadful build type. Are you out on Kelsey altogether this year? No. I think Kelsey is worth it in this general round range for like 7 through 9. I would have loved Kelsey if he fell to me in 11. I think he just like opens up a lot for you to do. I'll say in redraft, I like him more on Underdog because he comes with that upside of like he could have 150 and 2 and just kind of be someone you need in those playoff weeks. You can also just like draft him and then either not draft another tight end, but I would say just draft one really late. In redraft leagues, it hurts you a little bit more because you don't get that as much flexibility. But he's worth pick 7 through 10 in like pretty much any format you're playing in. Zero shares of Hollywood at all. Yeah, I haven't been drafting him much, but I'll say as we work in August, I am going to make note of the players I only have like 1 or 2% of, and I will try and get a little bit more. Like if on average you're going to draft 1 out of 12, I don't know what that is, like 8%. If on average everyone's 8%, you don't want to be at 0 or 1% if you're drafting a lot of teams. You want to diversify like a little bit. So if I have someone like 1%, I'll try and get them to like 3 or 4%. But I try and just do that over time and draft players that like really, really crater by ADP. He just never really craters, and he's never someone I really want because I'm kind of betting on Kyler not coming to play like super close to season. I think they're going to try and like tank this year. Where would you get draft Kamara if he got suspended 0 games? Is Jamal more enticing now that Yeah, okay. So this will probably be the last question to answer. We've got Kamara, Jamal Williams, and Kendre Miller. Kendre Miller is going to open on the non-football injury list, which doesn't mean a whole lot. It basically means he's like maybe taking a little bit longer to recover from this knee injury than we thought. He's not going to start camp healthy, which is terrible for a rookie, right? And so I think I'm going to go into the rankings, kind of bump him down, bump Jamal up. Jamal has also been falling in the rankings or in ADP. So Jamal is someone I haven't drafted a lot of, but he's finally starting to become a decent value. And I think now is the time you really want to pounce on Jamal, because if, let's just say one scenario, if Kendre Miller kind of doesn't come to camp super early, well, now he's a rookie that's, probably going to start the season a little bit slow. And if Kamara gets suspended a few games, now Jamal Williams is like an awesome pick early on. Even if he only provides you a few weeks of starting production, that can be valuable at where he's going. So I think he's a good pick right now. I will say, if Kamara doesn't get suspended at all, Kendre and Jamal will probably end up being busts at their ADP. If you got no games of a suspension, Kamara will probably end up being a 6th round pick. He'll be at the beginning of these flyers, so he's not going to go with Aaron Jones, Najee, Mixon, Dobbins, Etienne. I think he'd be right there. Like Ken Walker, Akers, I think would go before him. But he'd go Pacheco. Oh my God, this team seems so bad. He'd go right with Madison, Miles Sanders. I think right ahead of them. So in that 6th round, maybe he gets steamed to the 5th round if there's again no suspension, and if we have maybe we have Kendre Miller missing a lot of camp. I don't think that'll happen. I think that he's going to see at least 2 or 4 games. I think it's going to be in that general range. And I think he'll end up in the final ADP in the 8th round, maybe the 7th round. He'll be right in this range of Javonte Williams, David Montgomery, Dameon Pierce, Rachaad White, right in that grouping, because they do have Jamal Williams, who they will use. They do have Kendre Miller, who, when he is healthy, is a really good running back, is a great talent. And when they have all three, you're not going to love any of it. It's just more that Kamara is the best running back of the three. He's got receiving upside, so you'll still want him first. So that's just a general take there. I think it'll be 2 or 4 games. I think right now is the time to draft Jamal Williams. Wait for better value in Kendre Miller. Because for Kendre Miller and Jamal also, if their ADPs keep dropping, we're going to start getting them the best values they've been all summer, and we don't know exactly where they're going to end up. But if it's the best value right now, if it's going to keep dropping, let's try and time that bottom, basically. This will actually be the final question. Are you going to submit the Fantasy Pros rankings at some point? You aggregate them with other experts you like? Yes, to get at the end, but not anytime soon, really. I have my own rankings on the site that I charge for. So for me to just basically, I don't love how Fantasy Pros, you upload the rankings and then people can really just select 2 people and kind of guess what your rankings are, at least generally guess what your rankings are. And realistically, you could do the math to figure out exactly what someone's rankings are if you have just 2 and then you test other ones. So you can figure out what someone's rankings are just by pulling what they have. So usually what I do, also, if you're drafting against other people, well, other people are using the Fantasy Pros rankings. And so I would prefer you all have an edge over them, in which case I should keep the rankings that are in there, which are probably not good right now. They're the basically the rankings right after the draft happened. That's feeding into Fantasy Pros. And so you guys are drafting against people who have a little bit worse rankings. The rankings are for people who support me, have access to the website. But I also obviously want to be in the competition. So once we get into late August, I'll throw the rankings in there. Before that, probably won't. So leave a like if you've been this far in the video. Make sure to use promo code FFA if you guys want your deposit match. You want my Underdog rankings, articles, drafting at, all of that. I will not be here next week for the live stream. We'll be back the week after that. Tomorrow is tight end rankings. We got a running back breakdown of the dead zone on Thursday. And then Friday is going to be league-winning wide receivers. I also forgot to throw up the graphic, so we will end on that one. Here it is. If you are not in a state that has black, you are in a gray state, you are in a yellow state, you can do these Underdog drafts. You don't need to be in a state that has legalized sports betting. It's not sports betting, all right? So any state that is not black, you can do Underdog drafts in, and then make sure, of course, we are being responsible and not overextending. So, again, like the video. If any of you are somehow not subscribed to the channel, subscribe to the channel. But I'll catch you guys in the stream next time.